Today we're going over all 4 Darktide classes and I'm going to show you their true potential.
Nice.
But on top of that, I'm also going to help you pick the perfect character to main on launch so that you don't have to waste any time when you get on for the first time playing around with some random nonsense. And talking about playing around, if you guys help me get this video to 1K likes, I'll be giving away a copy of Darktide to a random subscriber that comments #ZerkerGang down in the comments. And I decided that if this Psyker video gets to 1K likes, I'll do the same for that video too. But I'm not done there, because on my raw gameplay channel, I'm giving away even more keys for Darktide, so everything you need will be linked in the description and on Discord, and I'll be announcing the winners in about a week. This is also facilitated by me. I'm not partnered with Fat Shark in any way, so there's a lot of chances for free Darktide. Good luck. And before you ask me why I'm qualified to tell you what to play, it's very simple. I was born with the sorting hat, but I don't need a fake CGI guardsman hat, because I was born with the true sorting hat. And somehow I also managed to get almost 40 hours on the last beta, which really actually just feels all like a blur now. But at least I have the experience to tell you that there's going to be a lot of level 1 guardsman veterans in your lobbies really living up to their real class fantasy. So to light this off, we're going to do everything we can to avoid ending up like that, so that we can be the true veterans we were meant to be and shine for the Emperor with the strongest, most ungodly powerful weapon in the entire game that does literally everything perfectly. That's right, it's the shovel. Now I know what you're thinking, it's just a shovel, but as you can see, I'm confusing the Plague Ogryn with my tank skills, and that's all because of the Emperor's mightiest weapon. And those with steel faith in the Emperor know that the shovel is pretty much the best all-round weapon ever made. And if it's good enough for Starship Troopers, it's also good enough for us. So as you can see, when you run into the big bosses, you just bonk them. And as for the hordes, you just bonk them too. And oddly enough, you can really start knocking them around with the heavy attacks, and you can pretty much delete them once you get a little bit of a higher tier shovel. So it's actually a pretty solid weapon for pretty much dealing with everything. It had like pretty mid-tier armor penetration, oddly, so it actually ends up being pretty good. And I guess if you get bored, you could dig a hole for yourself and stick your head in it when your teammates leave you alone with a friendly doggo. But if you are playing veteran Sharpshooter, you probably don't want to be in melee the entire time, let's be honest, and with infinite grenades you don't really have to. And since you get this perk pretty early on, it means basically every time you're getting overran, you can deal with the rabble with no issues at all. And for those moments where you have to deal a ton of elites, your ultimate lets you go sicko mode for like 4 seconds of pure destruction. It reduces recoil and zooms you in and highlights elites. And with another perk, it highlights them for your teammates too. So it really helps people focus after their 20-hour grind, and it lets them run at the shiny guy. And it really helps when the lights are out. But on top of that, most guardsman weapons have a flashlight on them, and you're the only one with a real good flashlight. So when that mod comes into play, you're actually the MVP. But when the game does come out, we are going to have a lot more options for melee and ranged weapons. And on the last beta, we really just had last guns, auto guns, and shotguns with no real crazy modifiers on them. And now the last guns without customizations were absolutely terrible. But as we see more stuff coming out, they're going to be really good. And from a little bit of the leakage, we know that some of the mods for them are going to be pretty insane. And last guns are actually going to be probably one of the most well-rounded weapons in the game, and you can customize it to your playstyle. But I'm probably still going to end up using the auto gun because it was pure bliss. Honestly, the auto gun was probably my favorite gun on the veteran during the beta just because it was all around amazing. It was good at killing hordes, had crazy armor penetration, so it was super good at killing elites and bosses, and honestly, it just sounded cool. But on live, we'll have plasma guns and flamethrowers. There was something about grenade launchers. I don't know if the guardsmen are going to get them yet, but we'll have to see about that. And really, if you want to play a ranged solo carry with tons of passive support elements, this is probably the character for you. It's a little on the squishier side, but at the end of the day, if you can pump out tons of damage, that doesn't really matter because it is actually pretty easy to regen your shield. But the main thing you have to look forward to being a veteran is to RP as a Cadian super soldier and to stand where others fall. But that doesn't mean you have to stand alone, because when the thick boys pull up Nothing, and I mean nothing, can stand in their way. Now, the Ogryn is a special boy with a lot of muscle and a lot of class, and you're going to need all that innocent, raw power, aggression, and energy to really carry your teammates on Darktides, because one of its biggest W's is that you are uninterruptible all the time. Nothing can stagger you, whether your shield breaks or not. So whenever there's an objective, you can basically solo run it down with no interruptions. And the real positive about not getting staggered is that you can res your teammates all the time without getting interrupted. So you can basically just infinite pick people up and just let them be a meat shield in front of you, which is absolutely perfect for all of our guardsmen, our peers. And when you're done picking them up, put them on your back for the ride of their lifetime, because on top of not getting staggered, if you ultimate into a charger, a netboy, or even a doggo, because it makes you unstoppable, it kind of breaks their AI for that moment and gives you a long enough chance to kill them. So all the solo players are really going to enjoy this character because it has everything that counters the things that literally ended your solo run before. And on top of that, you can handle hordes, no problem at all, with a club or a knife, and the knife's literally the size of a human. It just looks like a plaything in his hand, which is actually sick. I personally loved the club because it had that little bit of armor penetration to it, whereas the knife didn't. So when the game launches, we'll also be getting the charge club, which is basically just the juiced up version of the normal club, and it's going to slap. So on top of that, we also have some of the best single target in the game with our grenade. Well, our grenade box, because we're too stupid to pull the pin, so we just throw the whole box at the enemy, and it literally just obliterates single targets and can delete pretty much any regular elite and chunk any boss or plague Ogryn. But there's also a bonus talent to make the grenades fly out of the box when you hit an elite with it, so you can actually clear a horde out with it too, or a bunch of elites, because 4 grenades come out of the box. And while you thought a hulking abomination would just be a melee god, don't worry, they actually loaded him up with some of the best guns in the game. And his base shotgun was pretty mid, but in the trailers we got to see a grenade launcher. But really, let me tell you about the Ripper gun. It's absolutely ridiculous, and when you get the full auto version, it's probably my favorite gun in the game, and probably also the most powerful. It didn't matter if it was a horde or a boss. It literally just deletes everything on the screen. So with all that muscle and power, you would think we wouldn't need anything else, but we need someone to look after our tiny minds, and literally the only character that doesn't completely trash talk the Ogryn.
Not stupid! I'm not! Whatever you think!
Intelligence couldn't save me from betrayal, Ogryn. It's overrated.
Now, Psyker, if you watched the last video, you'd probably know has the most single target potential in the entire game, and my favorite part about it was that it had infinite damage versus elites. And you were never gated by ammo, grenades, you're not limited, you can just go absolutely crazy. The only thing that slows you down is warp exposure, but you can bleed that off yourself slowly or literally just instantly by ulting, and you have no issues at all, so you can just go completely sicko mode and hard carry your team through the hardest parts of any mission. And in that video, I did say I prefer the single target build because it seems that's what almost every single team was lacking on the last beta. Hopefully that's compensated by some guns and some modifications. So it's something that can really make the difference on those higher difficulties and make them go buttery smooth. So you should never underestimate a good Psyker, because I actually think it's probably the hardest carry in the game. But if you do end up with a more single target focused team, you can go with the warp flamethrower, so you don't even have to worry about getting overwhelmed anymore. And if a guardsman or two get in the way, it's all for the Emperor at the end of the day. Just don't let the Inquisitor catch you sending them to the Shadow Realm with Lil Nas X. Because of course, the most hyped weapon in all existence will come crashing down on you. Now, the Thunderhammer is easily the coolest and greatest weapon that exists in the entire world, like not just the Warhammer universe ever. It's just the best. And any blasphemy against it, and the Emperor will bring down its wrath upon you. And this thing absolutely slapped single target damage. It's spammable, it's ridiculous, and I had no problem soloing Plague Ogryns with this thing on the tier 5 difficulty. Like, this thing is just absolutely out of control. And even uncharged, it still popped heads pretty easily. Now, I was a little disappointed that it didn't AoE, but hopefully there's a little bit of an AoE variant later on that lets you like explode with it. I'd really just love to use this thing all the time. And to my knowledge right now, only the Zealot can actually use the Thunderhammer, so it's pretty much locked in to just have the coolest weapon. So considering all the other melee weapons can just be completely ignored as a Zealot, which you should, because like, why would you pick anything but the Thunderhammer? I personally found that the shotgun was like the perfect complement because its special lets you AoE like really well, like spread shot. So it was the perfect complement to help me deal with hordes and pretty much everything else. And with the concussion grenade, it really made dealing with any kind of real threat an absolute joke. And the stun duration is crazy long and can be enhanced with perks later on. So comboed with the ultimate, you could just blaze in the Emperor's name and just absolutely feel like the biggest badass in the world. So I personally loved Zealot. It was my main on the beta. I ended up taking it to level 20 before I even tried a single other class, just because I wanted the Thunderhammer so bad. And after I got it, I couldn't stop. But I obviously did end up trying everything else and realizing that having one of everything on your team comp gives you the perfect balance that makes missions super smooth to run. So you don't really have to worry about like metagaming or whatever, because class fantasy wise, they all hit the nail on the head, and they provide different buffs and a radius around them called coherency that really reward playing as a tight team and staying together. So you can make sure you never struggle in any party. And now I know there was a ton of polls on Discord. It's pretty even across the board, but I really want to know what you're going to be playing on Darktide, because I know personally I'm starting early access with the Ogryn, like hands down, just to like blast through some missions, level up quickly. So if you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing, all the videos on the main and alt channels and all the giveaways that I'm going to be doing, make sure you join the Discord. That's going to be linked in the description, and all the social medias are there too. For now, stay beautiful, blessed by the Emperor, and safe out there, so I can see you in the next one.